couldn't. I love the night. That's the only time I feel really alive.
That's what David wanted.
Blood, I was to find, was a necessity as well.
A vampire in love with a slayer. It's rather poetic. I am the monster the breathing men would kill. I am Dracula.
Good evening, my fellow vampire lovers. The sun is going down, and you know what that means. It's time for me to record another episode of my podcast, The Beautiful Dead. As always, I'm your host, Lena. You can go to The Beautiful Dead podcast on Instagram or lenanazeri.com to see more of me, and I highly recommend you do. Why? Because it is spooky season, and in 2 weeks I'm headed to the French Quarter in New Orleans, my favorite place in the whole world. And if you want to see me go live, you want to see pictures of what I'm doing down there, you really need to be following me on Instagram. So I'm just going to be completely honest with you guys. I thought about trying to match perfectly, but here's the thing. The first few minutes of this video, for whatever reason, are gone. Just gone. So I thought about trying to match the outfit, match everything, and try and weave all of these things together to make it look seamless. But you know what? Here on the Beautiful Dead podcast, we are all friends. We don't lie to each other. Part of the reason I did this YouTube channel was to show you that sometimes shit happens. Sometimes things go wrong. So you're gonna see the moment where we go from this video to the original video, because I don't want to re-record the entire thing, but I do have to re-record the first few minutes. So bear with me when you see that sudden change. Although I did brew the same vampire tea for you. So we are doing Sunrise Sinsation. There is a little bit of caffeine in this, but this is white tea with lemon and lemongrass and ginseng. It's going to help me woosah deal with the fact that I just lost the first few minutes of my video. But that's okay. What are we talking about today, ladies and gents? This week, because it's September, it's my birthday month, we're doing the stuff that I want to do, whatever Lena wants to talk about. Lena wants to talk about AMC's Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire, seasons 1 and 2. Of course, I covered season 1 last year, and then I waited till season 2 was completely done, because I know myself, I don't like to wait. Binged it all in one day. Brought it back here to talk to you, and oh my goddess, if you have seen the teasers for season 3 and Rockstar Lestat, I'm sure you're with me, so excited for season 3. So that's what we're talking about tonight. AMC's Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire. Before I get to the summary, and by the way, massive spoiler alerts if you've never watched this podcast. I do ruin everything. We're going to talk about everything. So if you haven't seen it and you want to see it, go watch it now and then come back. If you're never going to watch it and you'd just like to see me talk about it, great, stay here. And if you have seen it and you just want to hear a quick synopsis to remind yourself of everything that happened, that's what we are about to do. And then next week, I beg you to come back, because next week we're talking about the Satanic Panic. And when I tell you I did work. I did so much research. I have put my heart, my soul, my blood, everything into this episode. So I hope you will come back next week and hear me talk about that. But for those of you that just want to talk about Interview with a Vampire, let's go ahead and do that. Let's do a quick summary. Season 1. Daniel is an investigative reporter who interviewed Louis, an actual vampire, in the 70s, but it ended poorly. Now Louis has contacted Daniel and offered to tell him the truth. Daniel, who is actively being treated for a neuromuscular disease, decides to head to Dubai and listen to what Louis has to say. The story he tells is about himself. In 1910, meeting Lestat in New Orleans, where Louis runs brothels and attempts to be accepted by local politics. Louis cares for his family, which includes his brother, who has what I think is probably schizophrenia. After a night of sex with and being fed on by Lestat, Louis swears to never see him again. But his brother jumps from a roof, and the grieving Louis returns to Lestat to accept the dark gift of becoming a vampire. Louis doesn't adjust well to being a vampire and racked with guilt about killing and, P.S., not very good at killing, he decides to feed from animals instead of humans. Louis's family doesn't want anything to do with him, doesn't want him around, and the white businessmen and politicians around him continue to try and push him out. This is when he finds Claudia, a young girl trapped in a fire. He takes Claudia home and begs Lestat to turn her, and she becomes their vampire daughter. Claudia's thirst is unquenchable, and she has impulse control issues. Over the years, she becomes frustrated that she will never have an adult body. When she falls in love with a local boy but drains him in the midst of her excitement, Lestat makes her watch him burn the body in their incinerator. This results in Claudia going on a secret murder spree, which leads the police to them, and they are not happy with her. So she flees to find other vampires, but the one she comes across holds her and abuses her. She returns to Louis and Lestat, begging Louis to leave with her, which sets off a fight between the men. Lestat beats Louis, takes him up into the air, and lets him fall. This results in Louis being so injured that it takes months for him to recover. All the time, Lestat is trying everything to win the forgiveness of Louis and Claudia. After 6 years of gifts, Lestat wins Louis back with a song written for him. The one problem is that Lestat has been in a long relationship with a singer named Antoinette. Claudia and Louis tell him he can return to them, but he must follow the rules. And one of the stipulations is he has to kill Antoinette, a murder that he fakes by cutting off her finger and giving it to his vampire family, a lie that Louis and Claudia figure out very quickly. Claudia tries to live in peace with Lestat, but she can't, and then secretly boards a train to Europe, only to be caught by Lestat and return home. Louis and Claudia determine that they must kill Lestat to be free. It's time to leave New Orleans since the fact that they don't age is drawing attention. Claudia convinces Lestat to throw a big Mardi Gras party, and this is where she tricks Lestat into drinking from a dead man, weakening him, and then Louis cuts his throat. They leave him in a coffin on the side of the road with garbage to be thrown in the dump. Present day, Daniel accuses Louis of disposing of him in this way, knowing that he would have lots of rats to feed from and not fully decapitating him because Louis knows that that won't kill him. We also learn that Rashid, Louis' assistant, is actually Armand, his ancient vampire and his lover. Season 2 shows Louis and Claudia in war-torn Europe looking for vampires. They stumble across 2 in Romania, but these vampires are in bad shape because the blood around them is bad. This is when they hear that Paris is liberated from the Germans, and they travel there, finding the Théâtre des Vampyres, a large group of vampires putting on shows nightly for unsuspecting humans who think that the nightly murder and feeding is only part of the play. Leading this troupe is Armand, who present day has now joined the interview, and the real Rashid, the actual human assistant, appears to be slipping Daniel messages. Daniel is introduced to a man named Raglan at a local restaurant, and Raglan is part of the Talamasca, who gives Daniel more information about Louis and Armand. In the past, Claudia is in love with the theater, and she's working with them in the hopes that they will eventually let her join. Armand and Louis are getting to know each other, and Armand hints that he knows their connection to Lestat, and he knows what they did. He cautions Louis to be careful and keep all of this secret from the theater vampires. The theater takes Claudia through the initiation, bringing her into the theater, and teaches her the 5 laws. One of which is don't make a child vampire. Another one is don't ever kill another vampire. Claudia is cast as a lead in the new show where she plays a child, and despite it being a hit, she grows to despise it. She finds friendship with a human named Madeleine. Present day, an image of Louis, Lestat, and Daniel in the 70s is given to him by the Talamasca, and he starts to uncover some lost memories. When Armand is away, Daniel and Louis start to compare notes about the night that they met up in the 70s. Their memories start to reemerge, and they have questions for Armand. Their memories of the night were heavily manipulated. In truth, the two vampires fought, leading to Louis walking into the sunlight, but Armand pulls him back in. Over the next few days, Louis would slowly recover from the terrible burns, while Armand tortures the human Daniel. Armand reveals that he found Lestat telepathically, but he's not going to pass the messages from Lestat to Louis. And we also find out that Louis is the one who saved Daniel in the 70s, not Armand. Present day, Daniel returns to the restaurant where he met the man from the Talamasca and is warned by the man that they can no longer protect him. He's warned that it's actually Louis that he needs to worry about and not Armand. Meanwhile, Armand suspects that Louis now remembers what happened in San Francisco in the 70s. In flashback, Santiago is letting all the vampires read Claudia's journal, so now everybody in the theater knows what happened to Lestat. Madeleine is attacked by men who are killed by Claudia when she reveals that she is a vampire. Madeleine wants to turn so she can be Claudia's forever companion. Louis does it, and they all realize it's probably time to part ways. Louis and Armand leave Paris together, and the two women will as well. And at their last get-together, Armand then allows the theater vampires to ambush and kidnap Louis, Claudia, and Madeleine. The three vampires are put on trial at the theater, and it's presented to a human audience like it's a play. Lestat arrives, revealing that he is alive and well, and he is the star witness in the trial. The three on trial attempt to tell their sides of the story, but the coven uses their combined powers to paralyze the three. As Lestat testifies, we get to see his side of the events that we had seen in the first season and realize that Louis was not completely honest. His perception was not exactly what happened. As Lestat testifies, Louis, it's actually shown to us that Louis was the one that demanded that Claudia be turned, and he was fully aware what it would mean for her to be a child vampire, and he still insisted. Madeleine and Claudia are voted to be guilty by the audience and burned in the sun, and everyone sees it. It happens right on the stage in front of everyone. And just as the audience is about to vote on Louis' death, Armand uses his power to make them all order banishment instead. Louis is locked in a coffin full of stones to starve to death in the basement. After an unknown amount of time, Louis is freed by Armand. Louis burns down the theater and kills any of the vampires who try to escape. He finds Lestat in his maker's old lair and kills him, metaphorically, by telling him that he will love Armand forever and leave Lestat alone with his memories. Present day, Daniel reveals that he's been given the script from the trial play. I don't know why I did quotations for script. He's given the script of the trial that happened, and we start to see Armand's notes are all over it. So then we realize that it's actually it was Armand's idea to do this trial. He brought in Lestat, and it was his idea for this to happen. Furthermore, we find out that it was Lestat, not Armand, that mind controlled the audience to save Louis' life. Louis and Armand fight, but Louis leaves him in the penthouse with Daniel and returns to New Orleans, where he finds Lestat, and they finally forgive each other in a scene that had me all kinds of choked up. Daniel's book comes out, and it's revealed that Armand turned Daniel into a vampire to spite Louis. The vampires of the world are furious that this book is out, furious that all of their secrets have been published, and they all want to kill Louis. Louis returns to Dubai and telepathically tells all of the pissed off vampires where he is and challenges them to come for him. And that is how the second season ends. And boy, oh boy, I was like, ah! So I knew this was going to happen. I watched it all in one day. And boy, and then I saw the teasers for season 3. Oh my goodness gracious, I got to take a sip of water. I'm all kinds of upset. All right, let's do this. Let's break down the universe of AMC's Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire. Vampire crossovers. This universe is mentioned in so many other vampire things. It is a core aspect of, it's a core universe in the vampire genre, so I did not expect there to be any crossovers or references. I thought this is the book that gets referenced, not the other way around. However, when Claudia and Louis are in Europe looking for vampires, they actually made a point to seek out any place where Vlad Tepes had been. So in this universe, the Vlad lore exists. So we had a little Vlad Tepes reference there. I will accept it. I love it. Relationship to humans. They walk amongst the humans unknown. They're involved in law enforcement, politics, businesses. They feed from humans, they turn some, they befriend some, they love some. So kind of usual vampire-human relations. Relationship to animals. So we know that they can feed from animals because we see Louis feed from fish, rabbits, cats, really whatever he can get his hands on.
I don't know how you do that. You can't lack the taste.
I try to.
Never do we see them control animals, nor do we see the animals particularly bothered by a vampire's presence. And it never is mentioned or implied that any of them can turn into animals. Any other supernaturals in this world? Yes, witches exist in this world. And we know that because they actually mention the witches down the street from them, the Mayfairs. So we know they exist in Anne Rice's universe. Appearances. They have inhuman eyes, which I guess sometimes they wear sunglasses to cover them up, but nobody ever mentions anything. I mean, nowadays you would just think someone's wearing contacts, but back in 1910, they have these bright blue or bright amber, very bright inhuman colored eyes. They can make their eyes look normal if they want to. We see our mom put contacts in. They stay the age that they are when they're turned, but unless they show you, you wouldn't actually know they were vampires. That being said, in Romania, the vampires that we see are quite inhuman looking, and Louis explains that that's because the blood there is bad. It is tainted with sadness and disease and despair and distress, and he says that the quality of the blood can either improve or destroy how you appear. And they have long fingernails. So I actually knew Daniel was turned before he shows his eyes because I saw him hold the book and I saw the fingernails and I was like, oh shit. Fangs, 2 sharp retractable fangs. Yay! Perfect. Blood. Yes, the vampires drink blood. There's lots of blood. We see Louis present day drink from the farm, and it specified it's AB negative. I don't know what the farm is. I really hope it's animals. We also know they can feed from each other because we see this. They seem to feed nightly, but then we learn that in Ancient, which apparently Armand is an Ancient, don't have to drink as often. I don't know how long it takes, but in this universe, apparently you can die from starvation. Armand explains that once a vampire starts screaming from starvation, they don't have much time left. Louis is thrown in a coffin filled with gravel so he can't fight, which I thought was fantastic. I was like, dang it, why didn't I think of that? A vampire's blood can heal wounds. We see Lestat rub a small amount on the bite that he gives to Louis when he's still human, and it heals it. We also know from the flashbacks of Louis drinking from Daniel that drinking from someone who's imbibed in substances, like is drunk or is high, can affect how the vampire feels. So the vampire can feel high if they drink from a high human. Lots of blood-related information. Food, they can eat. We see Louis eat, and he's asked, and he says it kind of just tastes like paste. It doesn't really taste like anything.
What does this taste like to you?
Like almost all human food. Like paste, chalk, like soap.
Garlic has no effect on them. We actually see them laugh at this idea in Romania. We also see the vampires drink liquor, and we also know the vampires smoke, but I don't know if the substances actually affect them. If they smoke or they drink, I don't know if it affects them, but I know if they drink from a drunk human, it affects them. But I feel like, why bother, right? So if it doesn't affect you, then why would you do it? So I like to think that they do get a little tipsy. The vampires cannot be in the sun. If they're exposed, they start to turn to ash. But if you get out fast enough, you can heal yourself. We also find out that from Armand that vampires who are a certain age, who hit ancient level, the sun really no longer bothers them. He's over 500 at that time. I don't know at what point in time do you become an ancient, but we know that he's over 500 and he's okay in the sunlight. Sleep. In the flashbacks, they sleep in coffins.
I ain't sleeping in there.
We'll get you your own soon enough.
We also see them dig down into the earth. Louis explains that now his modern apartment in Dubai is one big giant coffin because it's sunproof, so he can just sleep in a bed. And we know that vampires dream. It's another time where this actually gets addressed for us. I always appreciate those little tiny things, so we know vampires dream. Holy items. We know that this is not an issue because Lestat enters a church. And ultimately, this is where he finds and turns Louis. We also see him carry a large crucifix at one point. So we know that holy items repelling vampires are not true in this universe. Rules. They do cast a reflection and they can be captured in photographs. Drinking from the dead can pull you down into death. But hold on. Lestat does it and survives. Now, this could be because Lestat is older, or it could be because he tends to tell some fibs. So maybe it just weakens you. Maybe he's lying. Maybe it kills the young ones. I don't know. Because again, like, we find out that Lestat has told the truth about some things, but I don't think he always tells the truth. I do think he does a lot of self-serving things, so who knows. The theater teaches Louis and Claudia about the old laws, the laws that every vampire was supposed to follow, but Lestat didn't bother to tell his progeny about these. And the old laws are this: each coven must have a leader, and only he can allow the dark gift to be given to someone. The gift must never be given to a crippled, a lame, or a child. No vampire can commit to writing the history of the vampires, which is what Daniel ends up doing. No vampire can reveal himself to a mortal and let that mortal live, which Louis did to Daniel in the 70s. Vampire cannot kill another vampire. And the leader of the coven must destroy anyone who breaks this law. And we know that Louis and Claudia and Madeleine are put on trial for breaking several of these, which kind of sucks for Madeleine. Like, she gets to be a vampire for like a hot minute, and then she's thrown on trial. She's like, listen, she is a badass in this.
What did I just say?
Don't eat cops.
Powers. Heightened senses. We know from Louis that Lestat can control men's minds. He can affect what they see or think. Lestat can speak directly into minds while speaking aloud to other people. So he can have two different dialogues simultaneously. He and Armand can fly, but they're not really flying, they're just kind of levitating. But Lestat levitates up into like the atmosphere. Some can teleport. Either they're teleporting or they're extremely fast. I think they're teleporting. We see that Lestat is able to hold people with his gaze. Louis describes it as being paralyzed. We see him freeze whole rooms with his thought. So he freezes many men while talking to Louis, and Louis is unfrozen. This is before Louis is turned.
But to seize it, I'll need protection from the wolves. And that's all to say, and forgive me, Monsieur de Pontelac, for my bias, but where...
We know vampires can hear the thoughts of humans and other vampires, except there's one caveat. The Maker cannot hear the thoughts of his progeny. It's one thing that they give up when they give the dark gift.
So you can hear me, but he can't. That make him the dumb one?
What's funny?
If he makes you, he can't hear your thoughts anymore. Something about the sacrifice of creation.
We see Armand has the power of pyrokinesis and telekinesis, and eventually we do see that Louis also has pyrokinesis. We see a group of vampires being able to control other vampires by combining their power. We know that they can heal extremely major wounds that would kill anyone else. We also find out towards the end that Lestat is strong enough to mind control an entire audience to save Louis. How are they made?
He drained me to the very threshold of death.
It is explained for me very nicely. Drain the human to the very threshold of death, let them drink your blood, and the turn is pretty fast. So pretty quickly, Louis's eyes are changed as soon as he's done drinking. However, then the pain kicks in, because then the human body is dying.
What's happening?
Your body is confused. Your lungs feel like water, your heart fire. You feel as if you're dying. Because you are. And then there's the red shimmer.
And then they rise as a vampire. So it kind of takes that whole evening. Lestat and Louis both turn someone in these 2 seasons. Claudia cannot. And I think that is because of the age she was when she was turned.
Why can't I make one? No matter how much blood I give them, they just lie there gasping.
What is this? Look at me, what have you done?
No.
I'm pretty sure that's why. I don't think she'd ever be strong enough to turn another vampire. Heartbeat or breathing. So when Louis is experiencing the embrace and feeds from Lestat, he says he hears the drumbeat of his heart and Lestat's. So we know that the heart beats. We see them both breathe, but they do sleep in coffins, so they must not need oxygen because coffins are airtight. So we can assume that while they're sleeping, they don't actually utilize the oxygen, or else they would have to pop that coffin open. How do they die?
Several ways. There's starvation. Drink the blood of the dead. Then there's fire. Decapitation.
So we see Louis shot, we see Lestat stabbed, and nothing. Sunlight kills all but the ancient ones. We see a vampire staked with a fire poker, but she lives for a while after that, and it's implied that Claudia stomped her head in. So I'm going to think it's the actual decapitation that killed her. One vampire throws herself into a fire, and we assume she burns to death. Louis pours gasoline onto the coffins of all the vampires in the theater and then lights the place on fire. He explains that some of them succumbed to flame and then some needed killed by beheading as they tried to run. So I'm going to say for all beheading and for all but the ancients, sunlight. And I would think fire kills all of them, but I don't know. Maybe if they put it out fast enough, they'd still be good. So yeah. Sounds pretty solid. Are they good or are they bad? It's very clear. Much like humans, they can choose if they want to be good or bad. And very much like humans, nobody in this show is all good or all bad. They all seem to be a mix of both, with some skewing to one side and others skewing to the other side. Even Lestat has a moment of redemption, so... What a bummer when I found out Armand was such a dick. I don't like it. All right. Let's do the ratings. How scary or evil are the vampires of AMC's Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire? So we're looking at the vampires as a whole. We have to. I could not break it all down. It's hard to know that they're vampires unless you look at their nails and their eyes, but now in present day, I mean, who would know, right? I would just assume that they have their nails done and they have contacts in. I wouldn't think twice about it. Even people walking around with fangs, I wouldn't think twice about. The vampires are well embedded in business, in politics, and entertainment, so they have access to a lot of humans and probably enough money to make some bodies disappear. They're fast, they're strong, they can mind control, they survive an awful lot and are extremely hard to kill. Now, they, like humans, have a level of morality there, so some of them, it does keep some of them honest. So they aren't necessarily more evil or more bad than any average human, but some of them are bound by the sun, except for the old ones. All in all, these are very serious vampires and could be a very, very big problems for humans. However, this is where they're going to lose some points. They're, again, just like last week, there's so much infighting and backstabbing that it keeps them from joining forces and taking over the world. Still, massive respect for the vampires that can call fire, because that is kind of badass. So I thought, all right, last week we voted them 7.75, maybe just a little bit scarier. So we're gonna go with 8 out of 10 stakes to the heart for scariness and evil. If you guys could all just stop fighting each other. Be a serious issue for humans. You could probably take over in like less than a week if you could all just stop fighting. How sexy or alluring are the vampires of this universe? So we know they have an allure, right? When Louis first meets Lestat, he says, I both wanted to murder him and be him. I think we've all met someone like that you just can't stay away from, even though there's something about them that you kind of don't like. When they parted, all Louis could do is think of Lestat. He had gotten so embedded in his psyche. When Lestat kisses Lily that first season, she looks shocked. The very first episode, Lestat kisses Lily and she looks like he has affected her with just a kiss. They are sexual. They sleep with both humans and each other. Yes, to the book readers. I know in the book they don't have sex. I know, we're not talking about that. In this, they are very sexual. They're fluidly sexual. I personally like this version more, okay? They will choose long-term partners, as we see with Armand and Louis and Lestat, even with Claudia and Madeleine. So they will choose a long-term partner, but they also, I think, will just have wild orgies, and I'm sure that's what the theater was. I do think that they are scarier than they are sexy, but not by much. So I'm going to give them 6 out of 5 onks for sexiness and allure. And if you have seen the Rockstar Lestat teasers, I have a feeling the sexiness score is going to go up next season. So make sure you come back next year to see. I am so excited. I'm so excited for this version of Lestat. My thoughts. I may lose followers here, but I don't care. I love this version of Anne Rice's world. I was so nervous when it was announced, and I said this last year too. I was so nervous when it was announced. I was so scared they were going to ruin it. And then I watched this interview with, I think, Jacob, and he said, we're fans too. We don't want to ruin it either, so please give us a chance. And that had my heart right there, and they knocked it out of the park. The vampires are so well fleshed out. The rules are so well established and followed. I love the shout out to Romania and their superstitions around vampires. I loved the inclusion of Vlad Tepes. I love how culturally rich and diverse this universe is. Every person in this show gives it 1,000%, whether they are leads or extras, and that makes such a huge difference for this universe. I really have to applaud Sam's portrayal of Lestat. The point of this character is you can't fully hate him. That's the whole thing about Lestat, is You know logically you should hate him, but you just can't. And Sam captures that in such a beautiful way. And the chemistry between Sam and Jacob is just unparalleled. It is so important to the core of this story, and they are so good. Even when he's doing monstrous things, Lestat has these moments of humanity and caring that just keeps you coming back. And that's why he's able to do the things he does, because you keep giving him a chance. I love that the show has brought the Vampire Chronicles to new people, people that aren't familiar with the books, people who weren't around when the movie came out in the 90s. It's keeping Anne Rice's world alive and vibrant, and I'm 100% here for it. I cannot wait to go back to New Orleans in 2 weeks. I really hope you're following me, because I'm going to be seeking out spots of New Orleans that were portrayed in this show. I love how diverse it is. I love how colorful it is, how rich it is, the music, the languages, everything. I just want to fall into this universe. If I could ever just be an extra in this show, I would probably die happy. I cannot wait for season 3. I really hope that you come back next year and listen to me talk about season 3 and watch it yourself, okay? Now, I said this last week, but now I'm really saying this. You have to come back next week. Next week, we're talking about the real stuff, okay? I want to talk about the Satanic Panic. I have worked so hard on this episode. I lived through the Satanic Panic, but I didn't know a fraction of what led up to this whole situation. There is so much I didn't know. I've done so much research. I brought it together, and I really hope for you that I have painted a picture of how do we get to a point where we as a society believed that the devil was walking this earth and was trying to steal our children. But that is what was happening in the 80s and 90s in our country. So please come back and listen to me talk about it. I'm very proud. Please tell people about the show. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Please follow me on Instagram so you don't miss it. I cannot wait. Come back. I hope it's not too traumatic for people. I worked out my own traumas doing this episode, so I hope that we're in this together this September, and then this is leading up to October, which is going to be so much fun. It's a vampire party in October. Actually, we're starting the last week of September with my friend Professor Mark. He and I are going to give you a college level class on the history of vampires, which is going to lead us right into the 1960s. And every week I have a different person on the show joining me, and we're going to talk about the best vampire material from the decades. 60s and 70s first with Tony from Hack the Movies, 80s and 90s with Jacob Givens, and then the 2000s with the manager of the Boutique du Vampire in New Orleans. I'll be recording down in New Orleans, so please subscribe. You don't want to miss this. In the meantime, I'm highly caffeinated, so I'm gonna go, but I wish you wicked hugs and bloody kisses. Good evening.
And big finish. Thank you.